This very sad looking Madone is the bike that I just used to finish the 9th edition of the Transcontinental race. Yeah, let's have a look at it. This race was 10 times longer, both distance and time, to anything I'd done before. So a lot of the kit choices and planning choices I'd made, I just kind of guessed really. And luckily, I think a lot of it paid off. I think my setup was quite good. I don't think there isn't really anything I would have changed, but we'll get onto that in a bit. This is obviously my race bike. This is the bike that I do all my road racing on. So the only change from that into this ultra bike is that I put 38 handlebars on, 38 centimeter handlebars from the carbon fiber 36 that I normally race on, because I thought I'm probably going to crash at some point and I don't want to smash my handlebars immediately. Which if they're carbon and they get hit, they're probably going to break. Which paid off because I crashed on the first night and ripped up my bar tape on the other side. So if those were carbon handlebars, they probably would have broken, and that would have been a very long first night trying to find some spare handlebars at a bike shop the next day. And then I put on my TT extensions as well, more so for a change of position. You don't want to be on your hands the whole time. If you can put a lot of that weight on your elbows for a few hours, then that can be really beneficial. Turned out those TT extensions, I didn't actually use those before I went to the race on this bike. That's a really aggressive position. That's pretty much the position I used to use for time trialing, but didn't have any problems with it, so I think I got away with that pretty luckily. And then I had my main Wahoo Roam up here with route and everything on. The only screen I had on was map. The other stats are irrelevant really, just the map, and then every so often flick through to see how much you have left, and then cry. And then I had a spare Wahoo underneath, but this broke on the first day, so I was just carrying around a brick for 2 weeks. And then I've got a massive exposure light that was very kindly donated for this trip by a friend, sat on a GoPro mount underneath, so that's kind of just all tucked away. I don't have to think about that, I don't have to worry about it. And then another exposure light on the handlebars. The rules are that you have to have 2 lights, which is fair enough. And then I've also got a tiny little kind of flashing light that I'll put on at dusk when it's you don't want to use up your battery of your main light, but you need one on just to be seen. So 3 lights on the front. They all worked perfectly. Everything went well with those. One of my TT pads came loose right at the start, and then I rounded off the bolt a few days later. So that was just flapping about for a week and a half. You just kind of have so much else going on that I didn't really mind, to be honest. I put on kind of fresh white bar tape at the start, which is now black. I put that on there because I thought it would be a nice show of how long the race was taking. That you can kind of date each picture of my bike from fresh white bar tape at the start to black at the finish. But I'll be taking that off immediately and putting on some black bar tape, or maybe no bar tape, who knows. And then we've got one new thing I bought for Transcontinental was a big bar bag. The only other bar bag I had was this tiny little dinky thing. Great for normal rides, but I needed a bit more space. And then in here I put all my electronics, so my battery packs, cables, SRAM charger for when that needed charging every day, and passport and other important documentation in the front there, so it kept it all nice and safe, flat. So my brevet card was nice and flat. And then also a toothbrush and toothpaste, so I could brush my teeth on the go. Just open it up and brush, and away you go. That was perfect, although it did rub a hole. It rubbed some of the paint away in my head tube, so that can match the paint that's been rubbed away in the chainstays and the forks from rider tyres that are too wide in the past. And then one of the other rules of Transcontinental is you have to have a bell, although I think technically that's a rule of some of the European countries. So I've got a bell nicely tucked away there that I stole from my mum's bike on the day that I left as a last minute thing. I actually use that a lot. There's lots of through Europe, there's lots of kind of massive bike path sections along canals and through mountain ranges that you're on for like 50k, and that is very useful. I don't think there's really anything I'd change with the cockpit. Yeah, it was all pretty comfortable. Maybe some new bolts in the TT extensions. Then I had my pretty small frame bag in the middle. Unfortunately with the Madone, just the way the tubes are massive, there's not much space in this front triangle, so all I can fit is barely 200 to 500 mil Sturka bottles, the best bottles, and then this pretty small frame bag which I couldn't fill up kind of all the way because I needed to get these bottles out, and if I filled it up all the way then you can't get the bottles out of the bottle cages. I realised I could have just bought some bottle cages that side pull, so they don't actually have to go in from the top, which would have been very useful, but oh well, I've done it now. And then in here I had spares, basically 3 tubes. I always had 3 tubes on me. I'm not running tubeless. My thinking was that, you know, if I had an awful double puncture, smash into a pothole, then you've got 1 tube to get to a bike shop and then buy another 2 tubes, and you've always got 3. And that was perfect. I did have 2 tubes in very quick succession, and then just stopped at the next bike shop, got 2 more, and then got 2 punctures at the end, but I was so close to the end that I didn't bother getting any more. So yeah, obviously I saw a lot of people running tubeless, sharing horror stories of their plugs not working, or can't get tubes in, or both tubeless systems have failed at the same time and they can't get it up above 50 psi. So I still very strongly remain in the anti-tubeless on road bikes. And then on the other side of this frame bag I also had my ID and my bank card, and then some spare brake pads, which I didn't end up using because I was lazy, but very important. The other bag that I bought for Transcontinental, Apidura very kindly gave me some money off, and I got that very snazzy racing saddle bag, which is crazy light, super lightweight, and just did everything that it needed to do really. And then in there I just put clothing, stuff that I wasn't going to need whilst I was riding, so the only time I'd go into that was when I stopped. So it had coat, jacket, like leg warmers, and an emergency blanket. Tyres is a hot topic on this Transcontinental, or any Transcontinental, and this is something that I definitely would change. I ended up just running 2 28mm tyres that a friend had given me beforehand, so they were already used, wildly underestimating the extent of the off-road riding that I would have to do. Even not included in the parkours, just the gravel. Most of Albania is just gravel. The roads in Albania are just gravel. So as soon as I got into Greece, the rear one had basically just fallen apart. So I bought a new rear tyre, but the only tyre they had in the bike shop at 8 AM in the morning, a 25mm racing tyre. So I did the whole of Greece on a 25mm tyre. I pumped these up to like 100 psi at one point before the gravel, just to avoid pinch punches. I was like, I'll deal with the loss of grip, but I really don't want to get pinch punches. And that seemed to work quite well. I only got 2 punctures on gravel sections, which I thought was quite good. But doing it again, I'd definitely go with probably the biggest tyres I could fit, maybe 33s, 34s, still slick, but yeah, some massive slick tyres. And I think that would have been I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. The front one survived. Doesn't really have any tread in it anymore, but another change from racing Madone to ultra Madone was that I put my SPDs on there. That was a very, very smart decision, because if I did that on road shoes, my road shoes wouldn't exist anymore. They'd be worn away on some Greek mountain. But yeah, just did that because the shoes are much easier to walk in. My mountain bike shoes, they've got grip on the bottom, so you're not just walking on a cleat, and they're a little bit comfier than my road shoes. And that was brilliant because I had to walk over this mental 2,000 metre Greek mountain pass that was just like a goat track, and there was lots of other walking on non-gravel sections. Another Transcontinental rule is you have to have a rear reflector. So I nabbed this off of my bike from when I was a kid, and cable tied and taped it to my bike, and that seemed to work well, didn't fall off, so that's all you can ask for really. Rear lights, I've got a rear light stuck to the saddlebag and a rear light, one of the seat stays. I did have another rear light tucked away in my saddle, so I went for 3 rear lights, and then when I crashed on the first night it popped off and disappeared and I never saw it again. So lucky that I took 3, and then each night I'd charge 1, use the other one, and that was never had any problems with that either. SRAM stuff, I mean it worked. I'm not a massive fan of SRAM, but it did the job. It ran out of charge a lot more than I thought it would. After about 4 days, I was always running out of charge on one of them. It would normally be the rear one that ran out of charge, so I'd stick it in the little ring on the front, move that battery to the back, and then charge the other one in my saddlebag or in the bar bag whilst I was riding. So I just was stuck in the little ring for a few hours, which I didn't really mind. The sand in Albania and Greece has just washed away any kind of lubricant inside any bit of this bike. and it sounds like it's like sandpaper, all of it. So that'll be fun to strip down and clean. With the SPD pedals, actually, I messed that up a little bit. I didn't take into account that my mountain bike shoes and the SPD pedals, the difference between them, like where the pedal axle is and where your foot sits. This pushed my foot up by about half a centimetre, which meant effectively my saddle had dropped half a centimetre. So about 10 hours in the first morning, I was having some lower back problems, which I've had before, which was quite scary, because obviously 10 hours into 300 hours of riding, you don't really want to have back problems. So I knew that probably was my saddle too low, because I kind of clocked that I hadn't changed it after these. So I raised the saddle up by a centimetre, which was way too much, which then caused me to have knee problems in Albania. So then I dropped the saddle half a centimetre, and it was perfect after that. I got away with it. So I got quite lucky there. Either of those could have been kind of race-ending injuries if I hadn't have clocked it early enough. So don't mess about with your seat height. One of, if not the most important item I had, I took with me, was 2 tubes of salt 7 tabs from Sturka. These were essential. I don't think I would have finished if I didn't have these. It got so unbelievably hot just the more you got into the Baltic countries, and my Wahoo was bouncing off 40 degrees for a few days, and you just basically every little village I got to, I was filling up and putting a tab in, and then that got me to the next village, and then I filled up again with more cold water. But yeah, I wouldn't really ride anywhere in the heat or anywhere in general now without these tabs. I bought 2 tubes, and I've got 2 tablets left in here. I left my normal cassette, the one that I use for racing, on there. There were more than a few times going up mountain passes in my granny gear, really wishing I had a smaller gear, but I don't think I'd get a smaller one if I did it again, because you just would have gone up the climbs slower. I got up the climbs, I just didn't enjoy it very much. Whereas if I had a smaller gear, I would have just gone slower. It didn't actually stop me from getting anywhere. So yeah, I'd probably leave that on there. I mean, it's not a massive gear anyway, but yeah, it kind of motivates you to get up the climb. You just have to deal with it. So yeah, if I was doing it again, which I don't think I am going to do it again, not in the near future anyway, much wider tyres, like as wide as I could fit on there. I would have invested in some tyres, some good tyres. But apart from that, I think it was, I think I got pretty lucky. Pretty lucky nothing happened to my chain. I didn't have a chain break or anything with me. So that would have been fun, but ended up being fine. So yeah, I'm gonna go give this a clean now.